Hi everyone, I'm Jocelyn, and I am grateful you're here. You're listening to the Starting with Gratitude podcast. This is a safe space intended to host meaningful conversations exploring all topics of the human experience. Every conversation starts with gratitude and remains rooted in gratitude. After you listen, make sure to join the community by subscribing and sharing. I am so happy you have joined us. Hello, Swopes.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm doing really good. Before jumping on this recording of this special episode that we're about to have, I expressed just my genuine excitement in exchanging energy with you. And I just feel like you are a really consistent creator who genuinely expresses their passion in everything that they do. And I really appreciate that about you. And it seems like you are someone who has gotten to a space where you're very mindful, not only about your personal life, but your professional life too. So I kind of really want to delve in on that and get to know Swopes more in that light.
Yeah, thank you. First and foremost, I really appreciate the kind words. And it's interesting. I think the mindfulness was obtained by me not being mindful for so long. That mindfulness came in like 2015, 2016, probably, when I had hit my lowest point of just existing and being and thinking. And I was just in a rut. I needed to put the pieces back together mostly. And so I was just like out partying a lot, doing a lot of like self-medicating. I really didn't know my purpose and my mission, but once I kind of had this breaking point with myself specifically, to be honest with you, what happened was I was with one of my friends, Jackie, and another one of her friends, or two of her friends, and they were at my house, and we were doing shrooms. And I like to say that shrooms definitely help in many, many, many ways. And for me, that was kind of like my eye-opening moment where I kind of saw myself outside of myself in a way. And I just kind of like, I don't know, I just felt like sad for myself. Like, I was like, why am I doing these things to myself all the time? Like, it's not about anybody else. It's not anybody's fault. It's not anybody's responsibility but my own. And at that time I had been smoking cigarettes. I was spending a lot of money on like Xanax and like cocaine, like to be very specific. Like I'm just being really honest,
Yeah.
And I stopped the next day, cold turkey. And I just started meditating. I started reading. I started Xing a lot of people out. I just had like an epiphany of a sort. And it was like everything I ever needed. And it wasn't like a new situation for me. I had done shrooms in the past where I allowed it to kind of open my mind and allowed me to see myself outside of all the other like blinding situations that the world kind of provides. And so with that, my mind was opened. And ever since then, I've just been on a journey of self. It's interesting, before 2015, I had gotten all the kind of same like projects. I was traveling the world. I was like in Dubai, Tokyo, Paris, and that was not fulfilling. I was still making mistakes and still, even though I still make mistakes to this day, they're different types. It was more like, what else? What's next? What more can I do? What more can I fulfill, within me, when not realizing the emptiness was inside. It wasn't in the outside. And so after kind of realizing that, now it's like, okay, sure, the projects can come, they're it's a really, you know, I'm like so grateful for all the jobs that I get to do and the business that I get to be a part of. But like that feeling that I have of peace and of happiness and like purpose outside of like all the external stuff it's just priceless. It's truly priceless. And it's come with a lot of practice though in these 5 years, you know, just having to just be really, really mindful, like you said, and really aware of my actions, my personal actions. Because the more I understand myself, the more I can understand others and have a lot more empathy for others and a lot more just understanding and patience. And it's a process. And I'm not perfect. That's for sure. But I'm excited about that imperfection because it gives, I'm sure, you know, it gives us something to do every day. You know, I get to read a book, I get to practice, I get to like keep inching my way to some kind of better feeling every time. And I feel that and I see it. And that's what makes all of everything that we do worth it.
Yeah, that imperfection gives you that like student feeling where it's like, and you get this newfound appreciation to learn, to just like keep learning. That's definitely something that I have in mind coming into this year is like, I'm really excited to keep learning.
Yeah, I super agree. I agree. I mean, the past me was like obsessed with being perfect in a way where it was like beginning from a perfect stage. Like I was like, oh, I'm not perfect. Oh, I'm sad about not being perfect. I need to get to this perfect stage. But now it's like I'm happy being imperfect because there's always a stage or a level to get to where it makes everything a challenge or a test. And that's what life is all about.
Yeah. And I think also when you get to that perspective, you begin to really appreciate the process more than being so focused on the destination.
Absolutely. Exactly. It's all about the process right now because the destinations, like I was saying before, I mean, I can hit them, you know, I've been to the places, I've done the stuff, but like, that's not the goal. It's the process. It's the people. It's the feeling, the emotions, you know, every step of the way that makes you feel alive and worth living.
Yeah. What do you feel like you're currently in the process of right now?
I'm currently in the process of shedding a lot of stuff again, but in a different way. It's like, I think during 2020, I was all about figuring out how can I fill time? You know, what can I add to my process that can make it much more meaningful, because it wasn't about keeping up with this or that because it felt like other people were or I should. It was about this end goal or vision, you know, that changed every now and then, of course, but at least it was something that was purpose driven, where it was like, okay, who am I trying to help? What am I trying to accomplish? And when I kind of decided on those things, then it was easier for me to kind of think about, okay, maybe I should start writing my book. Maybe I should start doing this, you know, start doing little things here and there. Maybe start doing yoga and meditating every single day so that at one point I can, you know, do a meditation class or do something where because I know and I've practiced it. So there's just little things that I started in 2020 that were adding up to that, but also now that it's getting back into kind of, I don't know, not so much back in the swing of things whatsoever, but I just feel like I overwhelmed myself with trying to figure out what worked. And now I know what didn't really work. And now I can kind of, you know, shift back and kind of, you know, simplify and just like get a little bit more focused on really what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. So last year there was like a lot of exploration. And now that you've done all that exploring, it's like, okay, now I know what it is that I want to really focus my attention on.
Absolutely. And that's, you know, mentoring, it's writing, it's my art, and that's it. There's nothing else.
Yeah.
And whatever else comes from that is what I'm going to go with. And I can't, you know, as much as I'd love to spread myself thin, like I want to do acting. I want to do just like a lot of stuff like painting and things like that. But like, I mean, it's like I also need to shoot photos, and I also need to shoot like video, because I like doing video. I love doing video. Like I see a future for myself in video, but there's only so much time like in the day that I can have. Like I like filling every hour, every minute, but that's like too much sometimes. So you gotta like be okay, what do you really want? Even though it sounds exciting and it's fun, you can paint and you can do, whatever, but or 3D design and stuff, but like where is the time and the focus at? And that's where the change occurs, and if I'm just putting so many things, I mean, I don't know what'll happen, but I think I'm happy to see that that where my focus goes is definitely what grows in my life.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I have noticed that I found myself in that same position where it's like, I want to do this and that, and oh my gosh, I want to do this. And it's like, I also have this confidence in myself where I know that I can do these things.
Yes, exactly. That's the problem of the artist, right? Where we know we can accomplish it at some point. Like we know we're not, and that's the cool thing. We know we're not going to be perfect, but we're willing to give it that time and that effort. But like, then you're kind of thinking, okay, well, what am I really trying to do though at the end of the day?
Right.
Is it because it's popular or because other people are doing it, because especially with me being a social influencer and with the content creation I have to do, thinking of reels and TikTok and, whatever is popular can be super distracting on my realm, because I'm thinking, okay, I need to add this in or else I'm going to fall off. But in my past, I've seen, not to say that things will fall off, because that's not the point, but it's like I've seen Vine come up, I've seen other things happen, and it hasn't destroyed me. It's only allowed me to kind of focus in on what my purpose is and what I'm trying to do, and really, make sure that I am sure about what I want to do. So with that, I'm just trying not to feel like I have to keep up, but just, be inspired and use what I can.
Yeah, now that I think about it, as we're talking about this, I feel like there is definitely a direct correlation between everything that's going on social media, all the platforms, all the newness that's coming up, and also that overwhelming amount of things that we see influencing the overwhelming amount of things that we want to do.
Right. Yes. There's a lot going on. I mean, you're thinking, especially as an influencer or a person on the internet, you're thinking, okay, I got to speak on these topics. I got to help people. I got to, I got to be funny. I got to be creative. I got to be this. I got to be aware. I got to be mindful. I got to meditate, like you got to do everything. You got to help. You're like, I can't do all that, but I try. Here we are.
Yeah. And in trying to do so much too, it's like, it's at the end of the day, when you don't get all of it done, you feel some kind of way. And then you look back and you're like, wait, there's no way I could have done all of that anyways in the first place. So why am I making myself feel this way?
Right. And then you end up not doing anything at all. You just end up kind of being silent a little bit, which I felt in the past. But now I'm so much more specific. You got to be specific. You got to, as difficult as it is, we all are here to pick something, to pick a niche, to pick our purpose, to pick something where we can dedicate ourselves, our being to, because that's where we make our greatest change. And it's hard as an artist when we know we can do so much, but and especially different chapters and different, parts of our lives require different things. What I'm doing now may not be what I'm doing in 5 years or 10 years, because I know for sure 5-10 years ago, what I was doing now is not what I was doing. Right. So I don't doubt that the change is there, but I know to be as present as possible to take advantage of what's in front of me, because that's what art is. That's what living is.
Yeah. I was rewatching your TED Talk yesterday, and you being quote unquote a child of the internet, it did get me thinking about like, wow, you know, having developed so much of your skills, being so appreciative of the internet, everything. I mean, we did really grow up with the advancement of technology, and it's continuing to happen. How have you, I mean, I think right now the new thing is Clubhouse and TikTok still.
Right. Yeah. Clubhouse is super popping right now.
Yeah. How have you, as someone who does influence others, who is an influencer on the internet, but also has their profession reliant on the internet, how do you balance that? What has been your...
I mean, it's hard. It's difficult. I think it's the same kind of thing we've kind of been talking about, is just choosing your purpose. You've got to choose your mission. You've got to figure out what you're trying to do, or you'll get lost real quick. Because I've been there. I mean, I've been lost quite a bit, and I do every so often. And that's why I have to have this thing called a life audit with myself, where I kind of sit down and I envision what I see for my future self. Like I said, who I want to help, what I want to accomplish, what I want to do. It's not about like the money or the housing or the objects or the materialism of it. It's more about what's going to bring me peace, what's going to make me happy. And that changes every now and then. But when I feel that change and that uncomfortability, and I feel like I'm being distracted by other stuff, there's a sign there. There's something telling me that I need to check in again with what I'm trying to accomplish. And then when I kind of sit down and really analyze that, meditate on it, which is really, it's a very simple process, just pen and paper. Like I literally write down like, okay, what's the long-term goal? So I'm writing like, I want to sell millions of books. And then in my short-term goal, I'll put, write a book this year. And then my tasks is like, okay, write every single day, or make sure weekly, I'm checking in with my copywriter, making sure that I'm hiring someone or keeping myself accountable in that way, so that each step is actually tangible to get me to that space I want to be. And then if there's a moment where, something is distracting, or I see someone being successful at something, I can kind of check back in and be like, okay, is this kind of on my tangible list of things to get me where I want to be? Not really. So I can be happy for them, but I can move on, and I think there's something that I'd had to learn through that process. It took a long time, but that's something that's necessary for me when working on the internet and doing things and not getting lost in the sauce, because that's more than possible.
Yeah, very true. What would you say was one of the first things that you developed this process for? Like one of the first things where you noticed the consistency and the self-accountability benefited you?
I think it was when it started affecting others around me. And that's like the best part, is when you see other people, you don't have to like preach it, it's something where like people start seeing you a little bit more happier, or seeing you do different things, or seeing you feel a little bit more personal success. And then they start like doing little things on the side, like waking up at 5 a.m. or reading a certain book you talked about, or, meditating or something. And they'll send me a little text and they'll be like, I started meditating because of you, or I'm waking up at 5 and I feel so good. I'm so happy. I started this months ago, but just letting you know now. And I'm like, that's it. That's everything. That's all. That's the point. That's the mission. That's the drive. That's the hope of any of this. Because like I said, when we understand ourselves, we start to understand other people. And I realize that I make a bigger change by changing myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Before we continue, because this conversation, I love that it got straight into it. I want to invite you to share with us what you wrote down for your gratitude.
Yeah, of course. Okay. And this is my gratitude list, right?
Yes.
Okay. I wrote this morning.
Perfect.
I'm excited about this one. Okay. I'm grateful for my cats. I'm grateful for my optimism. I'm grateful for my ability to invest in myself. I'm grateful for books. I'm grateful for time and patience. Grateful for my mind, body, and soul. Grateful for my past, and very grateful for this conversation.
Thank you. Received and reciprocated. So on that note, and also touching on what we've already been talking about, what do you feel is your purpose right now?
My purpose right now is to receive the messages that I've been given and to share them without fear. I am very doubtful of my power sometimes, and I hold myself back from creative possibilities. And I think that that's something a lot of us struggle with. And I'd like to publicly, go through that process with people, like, and even with my skin and stuff, like I'm still working on my skin. Like, I'm so weird about posting pictures of myself, without edits and stuff. It's like, there's a lot of things that I'm working through still that I like to bring people along the journey with. And I think that that's something that's my purpose right now, is just being my own therapist, kind of like, or being my own like kind of guinea pig, just it's testing, challenging myself, using myself, and to see what will happen and what can happen.
Yeah. This year definitely feels like one of those years where I feel like every year we say like, no holding back, but this year especially kind of feels like it has that extra oomph of like, no, really, like this year, I'm not going to place these boundaries on myself that I've been placing for a while.
Agreed. There's a big shift going on. You can tell it's like even people who are wilding out, like the Trump people, real talk, sorry to get political, but I even think they're like, I'm going to be myself no matter what, like
That's
it's
true.
on either end, and there's a big shift happening, and there's a lot of light being shown on things, on people. And, as difficult as it is as a process, there's a lot to be done. Because it's being shown. So, it's necessary.
Yeah, I actually like that you really made that correlation too, because I don't know why I hadn't thought of that. That's true. Because I have felt like there's this collective honesty that's coming up as individuals. And because we're all sensing it, we're seeing it as a collective. But I never thought like, wow, like if there is this light being shed on everyone, well, it's obviously going to show and cast the shadows too. Yes. Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some deep stuff, same way we talked about, the more I understand myself, the more I understand others, even if they are, crazy wild people, storming the Capitol. Like, I still see their pain. I still see their suffering. I still see their being, messed with, or something's going on. And I still, that's like even where my empathy even lies still, and I'm never going to be one to be biased on that realm. I want to make sure that we as people are always still being honest and kind in that way, where we're not like, screw those people. Like, obviously screw them, but like still like there's more to be done with love than there is with pain and suffering. And I hope and pray that soon we can start getting to the root of things instead of putting a Band-Aid on stuff, putting people in prison, putting people, just being so aggressive in that way, where we can kind of come back and think about, okay, where did this person come from? How did they get there? What's the reason? How can we help? So I'm on that level right now.
Yeah, I agree. Because even when you just look at it from the perspective of like, I myself could never, could never do these things. I would never storm the Capitol. I would never be, racist towards someone. I would, like,
Absolutely not.
putting yourself in that perspective and then realizing like, wow, something must really be wrong. And that's obvious. But when you look at it from a spiritual level, from like a very human level, it's like, yeah, you see that, you have a different perspective for sure.
Absolutely. Of course.
Yeah. Last year you moved to New York.
Yeah.
And you did it during quarantine. You did it I'm guessing it was also kind of tied towards the exploration that you were experiencing last year.
Unbeknownst to me, I didn't even realize I was doing it, but I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. 100%. The move was a couple of years in planning, and I kept telling people I was going to move. They're like, no, you're not. Even my mom was like, nah, you're not going to do that. There's no way. You're going to move to New York. That doesn't make any sense. But I just felt like every step I took, I became more serious, and I didn't want to keep saying it without it being real. And I'm someone who, if I say something, it happens. And that's like the manifestation, And so if I'm saying it, it's like written in the books. Like I'm not going to backtrack at this point. And it may not come, in the way that I've even expressed it right away, and things may change, but the goal is there. And I'm here living in Brooklyn. I really love it, but it's so messed up. I mean, it's strange living in New York during a pandemic. And I haven't seen anybody. I haven't gone out. I mean, I walk around and we do things and, do as much as we can, but there's no parties, there's no events, there's no things to meet people at. That was kind of the purpose of being here. But when I first moved here, I was upset. I was I'm not depressed, I would say, but just like, why,
Yeah.
why? And but after a while, I think I just started realizing like New York is my playground, like a little bit right now. Like there's not a lot of people outside. And it feels like there's a little bit more room to play. I don't feel as much pressure to do a lot. And I get to kind of like have a little bit more room to learn the city and to kind of be patient with my process here instead of rushing so fast. And I guess that's kind of the positive things I see, and I've tried to look at, because what else can you do, besides like see the negatives, but I've tried to meditate on those positives, and I see them, and I feel like I think the coolest part is to say in my life that I lived and moved to New York during a pandemic, and that's like an amazing story. So I'm
Yeah. What was your initial calling to moving to the city?
My boyfriend, he's from Maryland. We've been together for 10 years, and initially we were gonna move because he does want to be closer to his parents. His parents are a little bit older, and we get to be about 3 hours from them, which is amazing. But we as a couple have loved New York every time we've been here. Every time we visited, it's difficult to come back, but we have 3 cats together. So always have to go back home to the cats. But yeah, it's nice to have someone to do it with, and to make that change, that huge leap with. If I didn't have him, especially during the pandemic, I don't know how I would have been. I don't know what I would have done, but it made a lot of this a lot easier.
Yeah. I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like Chicago was and still is a big part of your identity.
Yeah.
Did you sense this kind of sense of yourself that in a way died, like moving to New York?
Yes, absolutely. I have been going through a personal death inside in the last few years. I am, as much as I'm the same person as I have, I mean, people who have known me my whole life, they'll say, you're still silly, whatever, blah, blah, still sweet, certain things, got a good heart, I've always been like that. But like, there's something different that changed in my drive and like about my ambitions and like my distraction by stuff. Chicago was and will always be a part of me because I grew up there and my family's there. But it was a place for me to be at that moment of my life, my 20s. I grew up there. I had to learn what worked and what didn't work. And now I know what works. And now I know what I deserve. And now I know how people can talk to me. Now I know where I want to give my energy to. And Chicago fulfilled its purpose in what it taught me, but now it's time for me to show the world what else I can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You do seem like someone who likes to challenge themselves, but in a healthy way, like not in like I want to make things hard for myself, but more so like I want to see what I'm capable of. I want to see how I can expand my boundaries.
For sure. I haven't. I mean, I guess I've always been that way, kind of. It wasn't like the same way. Now it's more like purpose driven. It's a little bit more intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Before it was just like, I'm just trying to survive and get whatever I can, And now it's like, I just know what I can do, and all of y'all need to catch up.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm feeling right now.
Yeah. Like you mentioned earlier in this conversation, I do feel like people who have arrived to your state of mindfulness and awareness, especially self-awareness, really went through some difficult times and really has gone through stages in life where you are grieving yourself. And when you talked earlier about having this void or this sense of emptiness that you saw in yourself and doing drugs and all of that, it reminded me of, and I know you read this book because you mentioned it in the video, in the TED Talk, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. In the beginning, he talks about how he went through like this really dark phase. And I don't know if you remember the short story, but then one day, like after like rock bottom, he woke up the next day and he completely saw everything in a different light and was so appreciative of the smallest of things and spent like 3 months at a park bench, just elated with joy.
I believe it.
What do you think where do you think that void or that emptiness or that part of your life was rooted from?
I think it was rooted in, I don't even know, to be honest. Like, I just think when I was growing up, I was very special and individualistic. And a lot of people made me feel like I shouldn't be. And I was kind of like ostracized in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but I just felt like everyone that I kind of encountered, like any friends that I would like attach to or care about, would at some point like move away or distance themselves or like bully me, or I don't know, like I just always felt like I just couldn't be myself sometimes. And so it was a difficult process for me, where I kind of had to shed a lot of that, but it made me like feel like I think like I needed like people's approval a lot. Like when I was in my 20s, like I just needed everyone to like me. Like I just needed it. Like love me, need me, But it's just like I don't care because I love myself so much. Like that's where the love needed to come from. Like it wasn't about anybody else. It was literally me needing to be my own friend.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, that's it's hard. That was the hard part. I also was homeschooled until I was like in 4th grade. I had a younger brother. My parents were divorced, but they were always really friendly and like they were nice with each other. So it wasn't like too crazy growing up. Didn't have too much of a tumultuous childhood, but definitely, I think it was because I was so like, I didn't like listening to people. I didn't like following rules. I didn't like waiting. I was so impatient. I mean, that's why I always got in trouble in school because I always skip ahead, or I didn't, want to be in class. I'd love just, learning on the computer. And even in college, I mean, that was my struggle. I'd like argue with teachers a lot because I was just like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, and I get that from my dad. He homeschooled me and he's a teacher himself. And he always taught me to just speak your mind and be yourself. Love yourself. You are important. Like he was always hyping me up my whole life. Same with my mom. They were just the best, most supportive people in the world. And I think that they kind of like helped me, but also kind of ruined me a little bit because they didn't tell me that people were going to be haters. They didn't warn about that. And that's where I got messed up. It's like, I was like, my parents told me I was the best. And now everyone's saying I'm not. Now what do I do? And I just became reclusive. And that's where I became obsessed with a computer, obsessed with just doing my own thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you could warn or school younger Swopes about the world around you and the lower vibrations that you are going to encounter, regardless of how amazing you are, what would you tell yourself? Like, how would you teach yourself that warning, quote unquote?
I would say, Miss Elise Swopes, you need to love yourself and you need to you just need to find like a hobby that doesn't require engagement from others.
Yeah.
Where you're not like always on the internet or like I think I was not into sports very much. I was a cheerleader though. I was on Palms for a while. I loved dance, but I never gave myself the chance to be fit or to like do extracurricular activities. Like I was always online, always on the computer. And that is something I would tell myself is like, get in your body, not in your head. Get in your body, work out, eat well, just read a book or something and leave people alone.
Yeah. That is really important. I wonder how future generations are going to manage that. Like,
they need education. They need internet education right away. They need to know the repercussions. The only way people will understand anything is if they understand the outcomes and the responsibilities and the reasons why they're being told that, like people can't just be told not to do something. Like you got to know why. And then you also need to be told that, they need to be told that their generation is a certain type of generation, like they need to be told that they're like, I don't know, like what I'm even trying to say, but like a different word, like just they're dreamers, or like they're philosophers, or they're something. Like they need to be told that they're not just like this generation something of the internet, because it like limits them, or like they get attached to this characteristic, and it's all about language. Language is really important, and peers are really important. We need to make sure that we're communicating with people, educating them as much as possible, and just sharing our stories, because that's where the inspiration comes from, and the truth, because you can't just preach all damn day and tell people what to do. You need to live that life too,
Yeah. I like how you mentioned, being aware of, you didn't use the word repercussions, but basically that.
Yeah.
And yeah, with great, like the saying, with great power comes great responsibility. And on that note, but also on another note, sometimes this like random thought that I have is like, I wonder if the creators of these social media platforms, like when they first started, like Mark Zuckerberg, was he aware that he was going to have this huge responsibility of censoring false news? Like, did he even have the slightest idea?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone does. I don't think any single person is sitting somewhere. I mean, of course, like I can imagine like Rihanna was like, I'm going to be the best singer and I'm going to be the best designer one day. Like, yeah, of course you're going to be. But like, there's a difference between that and being like, I realize one day that I'm going to sit in front of the government and they're going to question me about my platform that I created. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I don't think they expected that, but also it's like, if that's something that you created, you need to take responsibility for it, and you need to make sure that you're doing right by people. And it's so frustrating that like now Twitter decides to suspend Trump, to suspend all those Q people, to suspend all these things. It's like, this is 4, 5, 6 years later.
Yeah.
When everybody was telling you that shit was hitting the fan, and then shit has to hit the fan and then you get to see it. I just wish there was just a little bit more control. And I know it's a private entity and we're logged in and we're people using it. Obviously, we have no say so. But I feel like one day we should have a say-so on a platform as people. If we don't like some shit on Instagram, they take it off. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I don't like it, remove it, because we use it every day,
Yeah.
And that's what it should be about, is the people, and the people who have the sense, and not the people just because they're people. But it's hard to signify sometimes. So, I can understand there's a difficult process to it, but I don't think it's that difficult. I don't. There's right and wrong.
Yeah.
You know what's inciting chaos.
Yeah. And although this is definitely on a much larger scale, we do all have that self-responsibility in our own creations in our life and holding ourselves accountable. I mean,
right. That's why, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's why I'm also really aware of what I share. Like, I just want everything to be truthful, and I want to check my facts, and I don't want to spread false information and fake news, because if you just look on Twitter, you'll go into a thread and you'll see someone underneath that's like, this is false, this is not right. But someone in my timeline would have just retweeted it. And I'm like, how did they not know? You just look in the thread, like, I don't know. It's hard here in these streets.
Yeah, I always check the threads too to see if someone found it to be false. Yeah. I feel like that would definitely filter the timelines a lot if we ourselves also took the responsibility to be mindful of what we're spreading. Yeah. How did you? I wanna delve more into your self-practice, because you get up at 5 a.m. and you've been doing that for a while. You've been meditating for a while. I think you're vegetarian.
Yeah, mostly vegan.
Mostly vegan. Yeah. How did you...
Majority vegan, like 10% vegetarian.
Okay. How did this start? Like, where did this ritualized self come from?
I mean, I can't pinpoint like the exact day. I mean, we know that it was the shroom trip and shit happened that day, but like after then, I don't know why or when I was like, oh, 5 a.m. is my time. Like, that's where I'm going to be. Like, I think it just started happening because I needed a moment to myself before the day started. And I was like, oh, I'll just start waking up at like 6 to go work out or something. And so I started working out at 6. And then 6 a.m. workout changed into me like waking up a little bit earlier to kind of sit around and like let my body wake up a little bit. And so from that, I remember kind of sitting around and being like, okay, so what should I do? And I that's when my daily sunrise started. I started shooting a daily sunrise photo every single day. And then I think I was meditating before the daily sunrise, but I meditated because I found that Headspace app, and it was just really helpful, and I really liked it, and it was really nice to just, I don't know, be introspective for a change. And then after that, I started putting books into my routine because I was thinking, I was like, okay, well, this time is for me from 5 to like 9 a.m. How can I better myself during this space? And so I kind of started writing down things that I like needed to get better at or things that I wanted to do. So I started reading like books about like humor or like how to be friends with people or like how to do business better. Those are like some of my first books. And then I started getting a lot more specific into psychology. And then I was like, I love reading about the brain. I love reading about how people work. And then sometimes even with like my job on the internet, I'll get weird DMs from people sometimes. Like there's this one guy who sent me this DM talking about how he has like dreams about me and he'll hear my voice sometimes when he's like tripping out or something, which to some people would be really scary and weird. But to me and my like Dr. Swopes future that I pray that I'll get to one day. Like, I'm just like, okay, tell me what's your past? What's your trauma history? Where does this come from? What times do you experience? And I'm like, this is where I'm at. Like, I love it. I love that stuff. So that's when I just decided to start reading a lot more psychology books. So now all in the morning, I always read just books about business psychology, psychology of creativity, psychology of whatever, just to learn more about how people work and how my brain works. And so since then, I've been writing, also been doing my daily reminders that I post onto my story. The more I talk about my morning routine, I'm like, there's so many things that I do, so much stuff. Like I even, like write the little journal thing and I'll post it and then I'll record my voice over it too. And then after that, I plan my day in my planner, very meticulous, very specific on like timing and things. Cause I like to hit points. I like to cross things off. I like to challenge myself. I like to just get things done. It feels good inside. But yeah, I don't know. It just, all of that kind of just like, it just started happening somehow.
Yeah.
It wasn't intentional at first. It was just me listening to my gut and being like, what do you need?
Yeah. Last year, I actually I've always been really interested in people. Like I'm a big people watcher. Like, sometimes I'll just be at the grocery store and see someone be like, I wonder if they've ever been in love, just random. I've always just been interested in those deeper parts of humans. And last year I read this book called The Body Keeps Score. And it's all about how trauma affects your body. And the author shared so much about neuroscience and how your brain was impacted by your experiences and how that translates over into like who you are. And I was amazed by it, and I started getting on that tip of really getting into psychology books too, and I honestly love it so much.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
What's one of your favorite books that you've read?
Right now I'm reading Originals by Adam Grant, but I just bought these 3 books. I don't think anyone can see it because I know it's a podcast. I don't know if you're doing video, but I've just bought 3 different books called Do the Fucking Work, Lowbrow Advice for High-Level Creativity. Also bought Creativity, The Psychology of Discovery and Invention. And then I also got Steal Like an Artist, which I've heard a lot of really good things about. So we'll see.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about that book too. I haven't heard about the other 2 though.
Yeah, I'll let you know how they go whenever I get to them. I've got like 10 books on the list right now, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, my book wish list is very long.
Long, but it's good. Got a long life. I get excited when I'm like, I can't wait to be like 60 years old. That's like done yoga for like 30 years and meditated for 30 fucking years and read 30 fucking years of books. Are you kidding me? We're gonna be like so smart.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about this the other day where I was like, man, I'm excited to pass for like my book collection to be something that I pass down in generations and be the one to have started that.
Yeah, we ended I don't know what your family is like, but for me specifically, there was a lot that wasn't taught to me too much about mindfulness and health and just thinking about mind, body, and soul. I mean, my dad was religious, of course, and go to church, blah, blah, but that's not the extent. I'm just glad to create something for the future of my lineage so that they can be aware and mindful and just intentional with what they're trying to do so that they're not lost like I was. I mean, I hope that they have experiences where they can have lessons and deep lessons and things where they can find empathy and understanding, but it doesn't need to be that hard.
Yeah. I'm really excited and proud about that too. And I hope that others also acknowledge that in themselves, like any self-work that you do, knowing that it's like bigger than yourself and knowing that it's going to be something that benefits you and your lineage and the people around you for so much longer than even when we're going to be around.
Exactly.
So I wanted to ask you what your favorite way to get into meditation is, because I feel like meditation is difficult for some people, but you mentioned that you utilize the Headspace app.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Headspace is great.
Yeah. What, you mentioned that you in the future take an interest in sharing your own meditations.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of your long-term goals that may or may not even be remotely close to what you're doing now?
I'm going back to school. I'm getting my doctorate in psychology. I do not want to own a practice. I just want to be able to talk about it, be able to write books, do speaking engagements. I mean, it's going to take 11, 12 years, but shit, I'll be 40 something years old, 41. Who cares? It's young. It's lit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to write books. I want to help people out of prison. I am helping my friend Damien get out of prison right now. He's a writer and he is amazing. He has 26 years in prison. He's done 11 so far, and he does not deserve the rest of those 11.
Mm-hmm.
rest of 14, whatever the rest is.
Yeah, I saw that he has a podcast.
He recorded a podcast with me. Yeah. So I recorded it through our phone calls. We have 15-minute phone calls, like once a week, once every other week, and 15 minutes goes by fast. So we had to, make sure that we were using our time wisely, making sure that it all made sense. Difficult.
Mm-hmm. That's really beautiful that you two are doing that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's super beautiful, but it's also fucked up. Like it's not okay. Like the prison industrial complex is fucked, and he hasn't eaten a fucking vegetable or a fruit in a 11 years. That's not right. He can't have longer than 15-minute phone call without interruptions or someone listening. He has to, everyone's reading his notes. His room flooded the other day. He's put in his time for what he's done, and the system has just beaten and bruised him and thousands and millions of others. And he's not the first, and he's not going to be the last. And it's so fucked, all the things that I know that he's been through. And it's just like, there's so much more work to do.
Mm-hmm.
More work to do, and it's infuriating sometimes, and I try not to be mad, because I don't think that's going to help. I don't think anger helps, and I don't think it helps him. I try to be supportive for him. I try not to be emotional when he tells me, that, I don't know, just shitty stuff, and it's like, there's no control. There's no control for any of us, and I can't imagine not being able to decide for myself for 11 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really eye-opening. Yeah.
Super eye-opening.
And you do get this sense of helplessness because you realize it's like crystal clear that it needs to change and that it's really messed up.
Yeah.
And really messed up. But you also see that it's something really, really deeply rooted and systemic and big and yeah, getting that sense of helplessness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you watch all those people storm the Capitol, and of course, I'm glad that a lot of them are getting arrested now. It's fantastic, but it's weird. It's a conflicting situation, to be against prison industrial complex, be against police, but still hope for people to be arrested for breaking into the Capitol.
Yeah.
So I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
I want to abolish it all. I want it all to be abolished. But that's where our conversation comes into play. It's not about putting a Band-Aid over people. It's not about throwing people in prison. It's about figuring out, where did they come from? What is going on? Why are they doing this?
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people, honestly, I feel like if not already, we're going to look back at 2020 and see how it was low-key traumatizing for us and for many people. And I think a part of that is that helplessness that a lot of us felt last year. Yeah.
Seriously. Absolutely. Yeah. I used that to my advantage. I used the helplessness to figure out what I needed to do. Yeah.
And what did you arrive to?
Oh, I've started my mentee program. I've been helping Damien and putting a
501c3.
Yep. Processing that situation for prisoners and just seeing what the next step is, seeing where I can put my money at instead of just sitting around. I'm not much of a I don't like being outside with groups very much. So I'm not much of like a protester, but I'm much more of a producer. You know what I'm saying? I want to be a producer of more action.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is one of the best ways to cope with any helplessness or hopelessness that one may feel or have felt, is like finding your own form of activism, because it looks different for everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. And I feel like we talked about so many different things in this conversation. It's been so great. The last thing that I want to ask you, to kind of bring this diverse conversation full circle, is, what is success to you? How do you define it for yourself?
Success to me is peace within. It's knowing that I'm doing right by others. It's knowing that I'm doing right by myself. It's knowing that I'm giving myself the chance as much as possible. Yeah, and I think that's where my success lies. I can go to the Maldives, Will and Jada Pinkett Smith, but I mean that there's like only so much to that. It ends, and I can't be over. I can be like, this is my life. This is who I am because these people made it. Like, no, that's not where my success lies. Success is beyond that, and it will continue to be beyond that. So just keep working on myself.
Yeah, it's the best, honestly.
Yeah.
It's the best.
Do it.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you feel called to share?
Nothing specific. I think we covered so many things. Again, I really appreciate you giving me the space to chat. And, you're definitely somebody who I think is giving a lot to society. You're a good light, a great light, and someone who wants healing for others. Like we've been talking about, we want to start at the root, We don't want to just put a Band-Aid on some shit. And if we can continue to have conversations like this, and you can continue to shine your light, I swear the world is going to be a million times better.
Yes, I agree. And I receive that, and I reciprocate that to you. I really appreciate your art and your being and everything you put out into the world. And thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.